speaking. Welcome to this video. So in this video we're going to have a look at Rangers / Pathfinders, the next troop choice, and hoping to be able to reduce your learning curve with them. So these models here that I've got, these are the old Rangers. I didn't actually paint these myself. I've got these used just to fill a gap, and I do have some of the new ones, but they're unpainted, so that's why I didn't get them out. So the first choice really is whether to go for Rangers or Pathfinders. Now these guys have changed quite a bit in 6th edition. I personally would say yes, Pathfinders is the way to go. And the main reason for that is where the covers have been reduced around. Most cover now is 5+, so having that just minus +1 to your cover save is going to give you only a 4+ save, and they're not going to last very long with a 4+ save. So you need to go for Pathfinders really, because that gives you 2 to the cover save, so you can get down to a 3+ cover save. And if you manage to get these into a building or maybe even to area terrain where you can go to ground, you can then have a 2+ cover save. And of course if you manage to fortune them, which is something we'll talk about later, a re-rollable 2+ save or a re-rollable 3+ save, that's the way to go really with these. So okay, they're 5 points more each having the Pathfinders, but I think it's well worth it. Now the other great thing about the Pathfinder rule is when you roll to hit, not only are 6s AP1, but so are 5s. So any 5 and 6s that you throw are AP1, and of course you've got precision strikes. So any 6s you can allocate the model if you manage to hit. Only disadvantage with these things is, yeah, they only wound on 4, which is okay. That's great if you're shooting at monstrous creatures and things, where you wouldn't normally hit on a 4. But 4s, you can miss quite easily really. Especially if you've only got a small squad of 5. I mean, 5 dice, needing 3s, okay, you're going to maybe miss 1, and then needing 4s, you might get a couple of hits through. Whether you'll get your AP1 through, whether you'll get your precision shots through, that's another thing. And the other thing to bear in mind is, with your precision shots, is I wouldn't bother wasting them, actually putting them onto independent characters, because you can still do your lookout cert on them, which obviously on a 2+, they're almost always going to pass that. Quite good for sniping sergeants that will only have a 4+ lookout cert, so it might be worth putting it on that orc knob, with the power claw, that type of thing. Quite useful. Maybe a mounted gun guy that's in there. That's how I would use them, to try and snipe out those sort of guys. Unit size? Well, it all depends really on how you're using these. Units of 5, pretty useful, pretty cheap. I wouldn't necessarily take lots of Pathfinder units, to be fair. I would say that would be just a last throw-in unit if you've got some points left to go for some Pathfinders. A little unit of 5 could be quite useful. Not too much of an investment, and if you go for Pathfinders rather than Rangers, they do have the option to either scout, so you've got that free movement, and also you can flank them as well, which just gives you that option. Maybe a line breaker, maybe to flank in on an objective. There's one in a corner. You have that option available to you if you go for the Pathfinders, which is always quite useful. The other great thing about going for Pathfinders rather than Rangers is they ignore terrain. So that is absolutely fantastic, because you can actually bunker these down in terrain. Let's say you've got an objective just there, you can bunker these guys into terrain, and it will look like you're miles away from the objective, but in actual fact you're very close, because your opponent's going to think, oh yeah, he's bunkered in there, he's got to do a rough terrain test. But you can have a free 6-inch movement, and then you have the option to run. So you can very quickly make it across the board to an objective which looks like you're miles away from. So that's worth bearing in mind. That's very useful to have, and that's another reason why I'd recommend Pathfinders. Now you could go the other way. You could have a massive unit of 10 of these guys. I would suggest, if you're investing points into 10 of these guys, then you would be better off having some sort of support with them. Farseer maybe, giving you fortune, guiding. I mean, these guided are pretty useful. You can potentially infiltrate them into if you're playing like the random terrain scenario and you've got a random piece of terrain somewhere on the board, you could go in there and hope that you get a good throw on the random dice, get a nice useful piece. You know, they've got some good uses, these guys. I mean, we'll go into tactics more in the future when we talk about you know, the army as a whole. I just want to look at the individual units at first. So that's it for Pathfinders. I wouldn't necessarily have like 3 or 4 units of these guys, but I would have one if I can squeeze them into the list. I think Dire Avengers, your Guardians, your Jetbikes, you know, we discussed those previously. These here, they're very useful for padding out that 5th or 6th unit of troops once you've got your core troops down. So that's it from me for this video, and next we're going to have a look at the very last troops that we have, and that's Storm Guardians.